Welcome back. You're watching Stock Watch this week, and joining me to unpack your stock-related questions this afternoon is David Shapiro from Sasfin Securities. Be sure to send us your questions via email to stockwatch@bdtv.co.za or via SMS on 41392 or on X @BusinessDayTV using the hashtag StockWatch. Thank you so much for your time, David. How quickly things change from optimism over the GNU to uncertainty and the Rand seeming to be going back to what we dreaded yesterday, but now seeming that it is coming back. What have you made of trading, and particularly how markets have reacted to all the political developments in the country right now?
With difficulty.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what's happening and where this is leading. So it's been a very confusing situation. You know, looking at the Rand at the moment, it's come from 1840 earlier in the morning to 1880. And against that, we keep looking for hints of what's happening at the GNU and the various discussions. But I haven't seen anything. And the same thing on the market. The market that has been under a bit of pressure for the last couple of days has suddenly turned around, and banks were under pressure, and they're leading the way today. So it could be that it's year-end or half-year-end, June year-end.
Also.
And we never know what institutions and traders and hedge funds do. So sometimes you just have to take a step back and accept what happens without really having a full story. But we keep looking for the story. I'm not sure what it is, but the markets are quite strong today.
Yeah. David, there's a question. I think I can answer it, but I just want to expand on it. So it says, which of SA's companies stand to benefit the most from a GNU that is positively looked at? We have obviously seen over the last few weeks the financials, the retailers, basically your SA Inc. stocks. But now I want to expand on that, because there's always this debate of, SA Inc. versus Rand Hedge. At this point, do you kind of take a backseat from Rand Hedge stocks and concentrate on SA Inc.? What do you do? How do you position yourself?
You know what? If you want to be clever, and the problem is that we index trackers. The vast majority of even institutional investors track the index, so they're scared to go away from it. But if you want to do well and you've got the courage to do it, then you can go for your own private stock selection and go down below those heavyweight cap stocks and start finding small and medium companies. I just want to also say something else. Just to use a quick number, an easy number, we're 80% offshore. In fact, I think it's even greater, because I was looking at a small company called Argent this morning, and Argent earns 2/3 of its profit from outside of South Africa. So, we don't classify it as a Rand hedge, but it is. So I'm saying those kind of companies we ignore. Vukile is in Spain, very little here. So we are, to all intents and purposes, very Rand hedged. But it's old-fashioned Rand hedge. It's old economy Rand hedge. It's not the high-tech companies that are leading the US markets. These are not AI companies, digitization companies, or software companies, semiconductors. That's what's leading the US stronger. So you can't really use that argument of Rand hedge here, because we are Rand hedge and it hasn't helped.
But do you not think, David, then, that we are missing an opportunity? Obviously, I understand that the big returns, telephone number returns are found in, overseas companies, tech companies. But just looking at the Rand hedge stocks that we do have on the JSE that have big exposures to other countries outside South Africa, do you not think that maybe we could be missing an opportunity, in particular looking at the fact that some of them are small mid-cap?
You've got to look there. So I never look at the indices where I'm compelled to buy. I always try and look at underlying businesses and say, okay, I'm going to build clients' portfolios around individual businesses. I don't care where they're situated. I don't care about their geographies.
Yeah.
And as a result, you look for quality companies. But, when you go through our businesses, and that there are really good underlying companies, and that they've been held up by the economy and the poor performance of the economy, and they're battling against it, but they're solid businesses. And I think So not only that's why we want this GNU to work. We want to shift away from where we've been for the last, I don't know how many, 20, 30 odd years.
Yeah.
We want to get our economy going so that these companies can prosper. So I think that's where the frustration is coming around the current discussions, or the chance that it might fall apart before it's even started.
As we're talking about offshore, there's a company here, David. This is the first time I'm hearing it. I think you were laughing at me before the break. There is a viewer that asked us about the company. Let me see if I can get the name right. Arcturus Therapeutics Holdings. It's on the NASDAQ. Have you heard of that company?
If you tell me how you spell it, I might try.
So it seems the code is ARCT. ARCT. ARCT, yes. Arcturus.
Oh, yes, here you are. I've got it. Arcturus Therapeutics Holding Company.
Have you heard of it?
Well, I'm trying to find it.
Well, it seems it's clearly in the pharmaceutical.
Oh, yeah, you are. It's on the NASDAQ, sure. And
is it on the pharmaceuticals?
It's under pharmaceuticals. I'm just trying. Look, it's kind of kept in line with the slightly outperformed the S&P by mainly. It had a very good year in 2020. Came back all the way right down to 2023, and it's kind of bumbled along since there. So I don't know much about it. It operates late-stage clinical mRNA Medicares and so on, vaccine. So I'm not quite sure if I give you any opinion about it, it's not going to be well-founded. So it does exist, and it's done okay, but it just seems to be coming back to almost track where the S&P has been.
Well, David, I mean, just talking about pharmaceuticals, where would your stance be? Because obviously I see it's with your Modernas and all of that. And I mean, this is also in a period in which all of us are excited about your Eli Lilly. What's the other one that makes Wegovy?
Novo Nordisk.
Yes, exactly. How do you... I mean, if you want...
I'm still there.
You're still there. You're still there.
I still think it's much bigger than we think it is.
Yeah.
And that's why I like businesses like that. We've been not hurt, a little disappointed in pharmaceutical companies. So I think the one big thing we thought that would happen after COVID is that everybody would go for elective surgery again, the hospitals would be flooded. Also that a lot of money would be spent, having learned a lesson during COVID on social welfare and on those kind of issues. It hasn't really happened. There are breakthroughs in that, but it's so difficult. But in this case, we can identify two companies that are selling whatever they make. And whatever they make is very useful for diabetes and for obesity. And you can't get enough of it. Not only that, is it starting to help you in other diseases as well. It's addressing addictions of every sort. So, when you find a business like this to say, okay, that's why I like Ferrari as well, because whatever motor car Ferrari makes, they sell. They never got excess stock, and you have to line up for it. So you have to line up for these drugs as well. And so that's why I'm saying this is in my mind, it's probably a no-brainer if you want to go into the pharmaceutical side.
I wish we had had this conversation when I was still in university, because before I studied economics, David, I studied pharmacy for 2 years. I wish that I'd stuck it out. I even had a T-shirt written, "I do drugs" at the back, and this would be me making Wegovy.
I'd like that. I'd like to see you in a white lab coat, looking at beakers.
That should have been me. I'd be coining it right now. David, let's move on to more questions. So your analyst take on Telkom and JSE. How concerning is low volume on both? So let's actually start off with the low volume on the JSE. And I mean, this is something we started off the year with very low volume on the JSE, and then I think we saw an uptick when the GNU was formed, but now has it gone down again?
It's still very low. We've had a few days of good volumes after the election when there's a futures closeout and so on. But by and large, it is very difficult to make a living out of the JSE. Why I say make a living as a stockbroker, if our business was solely on the JSE, I think only half the traders would exist. You know, everybody's going offshore. The JSE are trying their best. I don't believe that the loss of listings is their fault. It's just the country, and it's global. You know what I mean? It's a global thing. So they're trying their best. They're well run. I can't fault them for the way that they run it, but there's no volume. And the UK is in the same position. There are other markets globally that haven't got the high tech, big flyers, you know, heavy businesses like that. So we just have to accept it. But it is a worry. You know, the volumes are very, very low. Yeah. And even with those big companies, you know, it's still not they're making good money and they make money, but and they bounced quite nicely in the last couple of weeks, but they're in a difficult space.
Well, another company that the viewer asked about in terms of low volume, Telkom, but I mean, is that just Telkom or just the whole telecom sector?
I reckon it's a whole telecom sector. Telkom are in a particularly difficult position because they have to keep their old legacy business going, you know, for those people who live far away and who want to still dial, or I don't know how you get, you know, haven't got cell phones or signals and that. They have to keep that going. And from that point of view, it's very costly, you know, while they transform into new areas. But it's going to take a long time before all the cell phones and data and all of that kind of offsets what they still have to provide. They've got the assets and buildings. They're trying their best, but it's a difficult business. And we've seen with Vodacom and MTN as well. Yeah, they're not having it all their own way. They kind of gone ex-growth. They still have to put a lot of money into keeping those towers and everything going. And you do not want to pay for data. That's why you go into Starbucks and you say, I want my data free. I'm not going to pay. You know? So you go find a restaurant or the lobby of a building, and you know. So how can you make a living if nobody wants to pay for what they get?
Exactly. I know as soon as I step into Sandton City, the whole time I'm there, I'm on their Wi-Fi. David, Nampak came out with its interim results today, and it's been quite interesting seeing investors going back into Nampak. Obviously, not enough to offset the pressures and the losses of investors that we have seen on the stock in the last couple of years. So they did swing from a loss to a profit. It was well guided, but even with that guidance, with the final results, market still made that stock climb by almost 7%. I do know that this is not a stock you would go for because of all the pain that you've seen in the past, but do you maybe think there is still some hope in Nampak?
You said it, some hope, and I think it's going to take some time before that hope comes through, because it's been, you know, this is probably a company that was just badly run. You know, and I'm going back historically. This has got nothing to do with the present management, maybe even the management before that. But I mean, some of the decisions of going into Nigeria and going into Anglo and all the other, you know, branching off into other areas, it has cost them so much that they're just a fraction of where they used to be. And now they're trying to build up from a very low base. And it's going to take them a long time before they get to where we thought they should have been. So, it's, you know, packaging is packaging. You need it. You use it. Yeah, but true. I you know, it's just one of these businesses that has absolutely baffled me as how badly they've done. But good luck to new management and to their new course. But, you know, I'm not what they call the Salvation Army. You know, I'm not going to.
Well, talking about that, because there are quite a lot of these like turnaround stories on the JSE. Would you be completely staying away from those? Or are there some that you think, okay, this one is promising?
You know what? It's quite an interesting thought that you've brought up. If I was a distressed investor, there are lots of people who deal in distressed debt and very successfully there, mainly offshore. But if you had money and put into a fund and you chose 10 companies or something like that, you only need one or two to come right to make it worthwhile. And I think there is an opportunity to do that. But as I say, I don't want to go to school on my clients' money. It's not my money, it's their money I'm investing. So I've got to be a little more careful about where I put it, not take gambles or guesses.
Yeah, okay.
But it's a nice thought.
Yes. All right. All right. Well, wait, before we get to your stock pick, there's just another question that has come in. African Rainbow Capital.
Which one?
African Rainbow Capital.
Yeah.
So the question is interesting. It says, are there any unconfirmed rumors on African Rainbow Capital? Have you heard anything?
No, I don't hear anything. I just sit in my study by myself with earphones on. Nobody comes and tells me about rumors. I've got to pick them up from you. But no, I haven't. It's a business that, according to management, trades significantly below its intrinsic value.
Yeah.
But what's that intrinsic value? And I think one of their problems is that they've just got too many companies, without really being identified with one or two or three big businesses that you want to have a part of. So I think that's held them back. I know that they've got, I don't want to say a high opinion of themselves. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying they believe it should be trading a lot better. But the market hasn't warmed to this one.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah. Very, very interesting also. I mean, we've got very, very interesting companies within their stable. David, let us get to your stock pick for today. What are you choosing?
I chose on Wednesday Costco, and I still like it. I still think it's the one company that I'm doing a lot more investigating. We used to ignore it, as I said on Wednesday. I said we used to ignore it because of Amazon and because of Walmart, which are much bigger businesses. But this was Charlie Munger's favorite business. He was on their board for a long time. And when you go into their business models like Macro, you become a member. And by buying a membership, you're allowed to buy there. But they use that membership money to get better deals for you. And they stock a lot less than, say, a Walmart, which gives them better bargaining power. But very solid results. And the last year or two, they've just suddenly started to capture people's imagination. And also, I think people are starting to buy down now and look for better bargains.
Yeah.
They're not online, because you would need a Pentechnicon, to deliver the kind of things, when people go there and they start to buy Tide washing machine, washing powder.
Yeah.
They buy these big, massive bottles. So it's not an e-commerce type business, but I like it very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for answering our viewers' questions there, David. Really appreciate it. And that was Sasfin Securities' David Shapiro.